would like to begin the Intra-Governmental Relations Committee at 6:55 p.m. Present are Council President Broussard, committee members Gilchrist, Heeman, and Scarl, council members Glassburn and Madden. Guests, the mayor, law director, finance director, HR director, safety director, service director, and special assistant to the mayor. The purpose of this evening's meeting is to discuss the recommendations from the mayor for appointment to the Art Commission and the Art and Planning Design Commission. Am I saying that right? Okay. Yeah. Art Commission. We will begin by welcoming Frank Bolton, the mayor's appointment to the Arts Commission for a term from January 1st, 2021 through December 31st, 2024. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
We thank you for offering your time and talent to North Olmsted. Would you like to tell us a little about yourself?
I would. That'd be fine.
Okay, great.
My wife and I live on Mackenzie Road, south of Lorraine, just past the I-480 overpass that we've had a delightful time raising our daughters in North Olmsted. My daughter Amanda was captain of the Eagle Lights. It was a wonderful time. Then she went to the Ohio State University, and she's now a fifth grade school teacher. I like to be involved in volunteering throughout the course of my life in philanthropy as much as I usually can. I spent 15 years as a youth minister with my pastor at Royal Redeemer Lutheran, 15 years doing that, and I thought, what would life be like if I wasn't occupied 9 months out of the year, every year? So I took a break from that, and I decided that I could put my efforts towards assisting our community at the recreation level. So Parks and Rec called me, and so I decided to become the president of North Olmsted's nonprofit for our group is called Friends of North Olmsted Parks and Rec. And I did that for 4 years, and it was delightful. We had such good engagement with the community. I think we were impactful. We helped with the Pocket Park and tons of events all throughout that time. After I resigned from that commission this June, I told Tim Pinchik that I would stay on until July. And then it has been brought to my attention that there might be a position where I could be impactful for the city of North Olmsted in the Arts Commission. So I open-mindedly accepted an invitation to attend a meeting. I did. I enjoyed it. It seems like a very good group of people. It needs to grow. I think that I could put some weight and force behind that. I am the vice president of a company in Cleveland called Cutting Systems. We manufacture CNC-controlled plasma and oxy-fuel cutting machines. They cut flat plates of steel into shapes, you take them apart, and you weld them together. You might have a ship or a bulldozer or whatever. So my life in my career is still full-time. I enjoy it very much because I get to travel the country to companies that manufacture things, not seeing some money and stuff that way. So enough travel to keep life spicy, but not so much that it keeps me out of pocket or away from our grandchild too much. That's it in a nutshell, I guess.
That's awesome. Your resume is quite impressive, and I noticed that you are very involved in the community. In regards to the West Shore Lions Club, what kind of services are offered to the sight impaired?
We provide canes, we funded seeing eye dog training, and we funded St. Vincent Charity Hospital's eye clinics so that they could begin a LASIK surgery campaign there. It was a very exciting time. I was really young while I was doing it, and I had a burgeoning family, so I only spent a couple of years doing that, but it was really a good piece of experience for me to see that we could answer Helen Keller's call. We began that for the Lions Club to be able to have an impactful presence and offer some relief to those suffering from eye afflictions. And it's close to my heart because I didn't get good goggles, when I was born. So it's really, close to my heart that way.
That's awesome. Yep. And then I also noticed that your a member of the Crooked River Band, which is, I feel, quite exciting. So what instrument do you play in the band?
I do, I'm rarely a harmonica player, so we play blues, rock and roll, and I am also a percussionist and I do backup vocals.
So cool.
We did that for 12 years, and our home base of operations is Ascension Lutheran Church. So we're just a bunch of dudes that were empty nesters, got together for 12 years, and we rocked it out. In all major venues, we really had a pretty good run. We were the house band for the Cleveland Metro Parks down at Merwin's Wharf. It was a really good time. When a boat would come by, a big ship, we would just stop and start playing down by the river or something fun like that. We had a good time, but COVID came, and then when that happened, there were no gigs, and that's understandable. And then when relief happened from COVID, we decided we were never in it for the money, but what we decided to do was let all the kids that are in it for the money have gigs, and so we kind of retired. And we're only going to do philanthropic things, like we always do the car show to raise money for the food bank here at Ascension Lutheran, Leukemia Lymphoma Society event maybe, or anything philanthropic will go and lend our services to. We don't need the money, it's just a good jam as long as it's early, because now, if you are a rock and roller, you know that you're also a moving company with all that heavy equipment. And if it's late at night, you don't want to do that. And then come home and unload everything. And get to bed at 3 or 4 in the morning and then have church. And so we're all cool. You know? We're all cool with the way that worked out.
That's awesome. Are there any questions from committee?
So you're willing to be our headliner at one of our summer concerts? Is that what I'm hearing?
We could put together a delightful set list for you.
We could get kids to carry that heavy stuff.
We could find a few guys to help.
That's great. I have just a couple questions. So your the CNC machine, you actually make the equipment?
Yeah, we are a full force manufacturer. We don't outsource anything, and you might find our equipment in Cleveland Cliffs, cutting steel for different plate sizes. You might find us in the United States Department of Defense making Abrams tanks or cutting steel for various ships at shipyards across the country, things of that nature. But there's also some small mom and pop shops that use our equipment to make signs and things like that. I was talking to Officer Carbone. He's had a pretty good idea or some insight about, hey, can't we cut some stainless steel letters and make a North Olmsted, welcome to North Olmsted sign? I thought that was a pretty good little outlook on his part. Anyway, yes, that's what we do.
Well, I see your daughter works at a Cleveland school. My retirement job is I'm the principal's secretary at Max Hayes.
Is that right?
And we're an industrial trade school, so they do have they've got CNCs, they've got everything there, welding, and I see your keynote speaker for the Welding Society.
Yes, it's
That's
true.
great.
There's an irony about the school thing. I'm an inner city youth from Cleveland. That's where I was born and raised, around West 25th and by the West Side Market. And 50 years ago, I went to Denison Elementary on 33rd and Denison. And last year, Amanda, my daughter, said, "Pop, I took a job at Denison Elementary." She's in the same classroom I was in 50 years ago, teaching kids. How about them apples? Full circle, right?
Oh, yeah. We're lucky our building is new, because of the manufacturing.
I drove by it the other day on the way to Granite Steel by 65th.
If you like a tool, just swing by.
It's
I
a
think
deal.
we could arrange it for you.
It's a deal.
I'm very excited to have you with your musical grant from the Americans Commission, and then some of these other business things. I think will be very helpful in organizing the day.
Thank you for your kind words. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. No questions, just a comment. Mr. Bolden, I just want to give you my deepest thanks for volunteering on this, and I think you're going to be a great asset to the city. You've already done so much with the city, and you're just going to continue, so I appreciate that.
Thank you ever so much. I appreciate it.
And questions from council members? Yes, Mr.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Actually, I thought, Chris, you were going to start by saying you have my deepest condolence.
I
know. No, I've known Frank a long time, and he is as genuine as he appears. So the city's lucky to have him on this commission, and thank you for raising your hand and volunteering.
That's very nice of you. Thank you. I hope I can reciprocate by having an impact that's very positive to stimulate arts and culture, all facets of our city, and hopefully some beautification as we move along.
Okay. Seeing no further questions, I would like to thank Mr. Frank Bolton for his time this evening and wanting to be more involved in our community, I move to recommend the Intra-Governmental Relations Committee approve the appointment of Mr. Frank Bolton to the Arts Commission for the term of January 1st, 2021 to December 31st, 2024, and ask for a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The motion passes 3-0. And this completes the Intergovernmental Relations Committee at 7:06 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here tonight and to meet all of you shiny, happy people.
We will begin the Public Safety, Health, and Welfare Committee this evening at 7:07 p.m. Present are all members of council, mayor, the directors of law, finance, human resources, economic development, safety, service, our special assistant to the mayor. And yes, on the agenda this evening, we have 3 pieces of legislation. The first, we begin with Resolution 2023-103, which is a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with Advanced Asphalt Paving to provide services to the parking area at Fire Station 2 at a cost of $19,900. Who would like to speak to this?
Madam Chair, I'll address this piece to members of the committee and council. I have a couple just handouts to pass around if you'd like to share. Just a couple photos of the parking lot at Fire Station 2. The building the station was constructed in 2007. There's been little to no maintenance on the parking lot since it was built. It should have some kind of sealant or other treatment about every 5 to 7 years, so we're well behind our maintenance. Because of that little maintenance and just the normal wear and tear with the heavy equipment that's on the lot, it's time to resurface it. You'll see in some of the photos where it's developing some trip hazards. Concrete driveway is settled. There are areas where water doesn't drain properly. And so it's also the station where fire does most of their training. So in the back part of the lot, they do a lot of their training, like extrication training, and it's just becoming more difficult to do that. So they had money in the budget and they went out to bid and selected Advanced Asphalt to do the job for $19,900 to resurface that station.
Thank you. Is that going to be an overlay or are they going to take all the other stuff out?
I think they'll fix and then just pave over.
Thank you. Any questions from the committee?
So it's just gonna be, in the repairs, everything's gonna get regraded again, so the drainage is.
Correct. Yes, they'll make those fixes.
Okay, great.
Any other questions?
So, will we have planned to have some maintenance done on the new asphalt?
Yes, moving forward, they'll put in a regular maintenance schedule
Okay,
for the property.
okay.
Seeing no further questions, then I will make a motion to recommend approval of 2023-103 to all council and ask for a second. Seconded by Madden, all in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, motion passes with a vote of 3-0. The next item on the agenda is ordinance 2023-105, which is an ordinance to authorize the appropriation of $82,500 for the North Olmsted Safe and Healthy Homes Home Repair Program Fund, subject to reimbursement by the Northeast Ohio Public Energy Council Energized Community Grant Program and declaring an emergency. Who would like to speak to this one?
Ms. Reynolds. Sure.
Thank you.
So this is, every year we get money from NOPEC. It usually ranges between $80,000 and $90,000. For the past couple of years, they have not required the money to be spent in that year. Every year, the council accepts money at the beginning of the year as part of a grant. There's money that is expiring in November of this year. We're gonna, it's about $82,500. Yeah, we talked with NOPEC about some of the plans for the grant. One of the things they've wanted to see communities do is use this money to give back to residents, and we talked to them about our Safe and Healthy Homes program and how we had a waiting list on that, and how there was a lot of, that's a big program we're trying to find ways to continue to get additional funding into. And they were very interested in that. It took a little bit of time for them to work through their lawyers, just because they've been trying to encourage them to pass, like giving LED lights and things like that to residents with it. If you don't use it on city stuff, like a skylight at the fire station, which we've done in the past. So the idea was to try to help out some of our homeowners that need some help. So we came up with this idea. They ran it through their lawyers because it was a revolving loan fund. It was a little different what they saw. Their lawyers got back to us in late August, early September, and said that they were okay with that. They thought it was they signed off on it. So the idea behind this is that we would take $82,500 of our money from NOPEC. They would send us an invoice. Once we get that invoice, we would apply for the funding, and then the funding would go directly from NOPEC to us, immediately from us to CHM to continue working on the Safe and Healthy Homes program.
Thank you. Any questions from the committee?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this money is the money from the NOPEC program from 2022?
No, this is money that's expiring. This is money that's from like 2018 to 2021. It's there was about 4 years, it might have been 2019 to 2021. There was a couple of years there where they did not require the money to be spent in the time that they required. That money is expiring. The money from then what they're doing now is we're getting an extra year for each of the other years until we get caught back up on that. So we'll have more money expiring at the end of next year. But this is the money that's expiring this year.
Okay, so how are we going to make sure that we get this through the budget process and more time is spent?
We are talking about some of the plans to use with the rest of the money. We'll have, after this is done, we'll have approximately $170,304 that's not spent, plus the $80,000 to $90,000 that we would expect to get from this year from NOPEC. And we're talking about how we plan on doing that, bringing that forward through the budget process.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair. The Healthy Homes program is a good program. It fits the criteria for this. For council to make a one-off decision on $80,000 of somewhat discretionary money is not a good practice. It should be part of the budget discussion for next year. Okay? Thank you.
Oh, can you just refresh everybody on how the applicants are approved for the Safe and Healthy Homes program?
So we have a nonprofit partner, which is CHM Housing Capital, that administers the program. Applicants apply through our website. There's currently a waiting list. You go through, it's an income qualification process, so everyone is 300% of the federal poverty level, all the way down to what you would consider low income individuals. And so based upon your income, you can qualify for either a below market rate loan. You could qualify for a forgivable loan, or a loan that's only repayable if you refinance or sell your home. So those are the three kind of tranches. So one from below poverty level to 200% is fully forgivable. 200 to 300% of the federal poverty level is repayable upon refinance or sale. and then up to from 200 to 300% is a below market rate term and interest rate, so that folks can improve their homes. We're talking like waterproofing, HVAC, windows, think of things that make a home healthy, that allow it to breathe, be weather tight, things of that nature. And we have, CHN does this program because they administer a litany of housing programs across the county, so that they're able to layer on other sources of funding and other programs that they administer. They administer programs on behalf of the utility companies as well. So they've been a good partner. They've literally helped us build and fly the plane. And the city of Cleveland actually modeled their ARPA home repair program after the city proposed it. So we can set that for it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So how big of a waiting list is there? And if you don't know the exact answer, just.
I don't know the exact answer. There's 40 or 50 folks that are still waiting, and we're working again through the budget process to fully identify that sustainable source of funding moving forward.
And what, if you can tell us, and you might not be able to, is the average loan draw, and then what is?
The maximum benefit is $15,000, and folks max that out between
Just about everybody?
electrical, plumbing, HVAC, because of the cost of labor, materials, and the whole 9 yards.
And then what seems to be the, like largest item? Are they doing electrical, are they doing multiple?
Well, a lot of it's roofs. We've had some windows, and there've been a couple of foundation, waterproofings. So, it's really spending in the roofs are one of the biggest items that they're looking across.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair.
Any other questions? Seeing none, then I will make a motion to recommend approval of ordinance 2023 to all of council and ask for a second. Seconded by Mr. Moore. All in favor, say aye. Motion passes with a vote of 3-0. Final piece of legislation tonight is ordinance 2023-110, which is an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with Cuyahoga County and the Cuyahoga County Court of Common Pleas Juvenile Division, where the city will continue to implement a community diversion program to hear status, misdemeanor, or felony offense complaints involving juveniles through December 31st, 2024, and declaring an emergency. Who would like to speak to this?
Madam Chairman, Chris Edwards.
Thank you, Madam Chair, thank you. This is a renewal agreement with the county. It's a one-year agreement that takes us through to 2024. The dollar amount is a little bit increased over the past few years, from $8,000 to $9,200, and the stipend per case has also been increased for the first time in many years, from $200 per head to $300 per head, which is actually a pretty significant increase. The county has requested that we approve our end of the agreement by the end of October, actually before the end of October, which is why we have put an emergency clause on it. Basically, this will help us stay funded through next year.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the committee? Council? It's renewal. All right, thank you. And if there are no questions, I will like to make a motion to recommend approval of ordinance 2023-110 to all of council and ask for a second. Second by Mr. Min. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And that motion passes with a vote of 3-0. And we approved it 7 to 19. Yeah. Thank you.
I will start the Building Zone Development Committee meeting on October 10th, 2023 at 7:20 p.m. Present are committee members Lindbergh, Williamson, and Eman, council, the rest of the council, Mayor, Law Director, Finance Director, HR Director, Economic Development Director, Safety Director, Service Director, Special Assistant to the Mayor, and guests. on the agenda is PDC case 23-25256, Freddie's Custard, 27350 Lorraine Road. Mr. Upton, would you address this?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. This comes before you, a small change to the approved development plan. Little backstory, Mr. Gatta graciously donated his time and materials to the Lorraine Road Master Plan public meeting where he was scooping frozen custard for all of the attendees at the meeting. And the first time he'd really seen Lorraine Road at rush hour around 4 or 5 o'clock, and realized that he might want to expand that the ingress egress lane to have a right and left hand turn lane to maybe not have to worry about potential stacking spilling out over onto Lorraine Road. He asked if it was too far in the process. We said no. Give us some documents. Read the committee the sentence that he was supposed to back from our engineers that the addition of the exit lane will allow for more efficient traffic flow on the site and reduce the possibility of backup on Lorraine Road. So this is just a modification to an already approved plan. Obviously, we recommend approval, so does the engineer. I think it's just in the best interest of the city and the project moving forward.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just for clarification, what was the background, or so this is the only ingress egress for the custard place? There's no
Correct.
connection to any of the surrounding properties.
The horseshoes around the back, and it's the only ingress.
And was there any discussion on that, or
It
trying
was
to
its
tie
own
in?
individual parcel, so no, there wasn't a discussion, no possibility, because it wasn't like there were ground lease or, the building went to the rear, and it wasn't, built to suit or anything like that, so it was a clean individual parcel.
There's I'll follow up on that. That doesn't really fit this specific case. No, I'm excited to see that they've expanded that as
Grand
out
opening
of
is
Lorraine.
scheduled for November 10th, so we will send an invite out to the clerk and certainly encourage members to come get some custard. It's pretty good.
Any questions from committee? Questions? Yeah, Ms. Hanley.
When did this, so planning approved this?
So it was an administrative approval, the original application, because it was in a permitted use and the building footprint was less than 3,000 square feet.
So then who looked at everything? Who did it?
Myself, the city engineer, law department, building division, and we issued an administrative approval subject to 1126 that allows.
I understand it's allowed, but so you didn't feel the need to report anything to council even informally about this?
Not that I didn't feel the need, it's just satisfy the statutory obligations with respect to how projects are approved.
Okay. Thank you.
Questions from committee or rest of council? Yeah, I mean, I think there's a theme here. Obviously, we'd like to know when the plans change since we don't get to see them again. If there's a change that's beneficial, obviously this is a great addition to allow for traffic and on the road that they're able to do that, get ahead of what is always a challenging part of the road and getting it out. So, if there's no other questions or comments, I make a motion to recommend PDC case 23-25256 Freddy's at 27350 Lorraine Road, and ask for a second. All those in favor? Aye. Motion passes 2 to 1, and I will conclude the Building Zone Development meeting at 7:24 p.m.
Okay, we'll start finance at 7:24. Present are all of the council, mayor, the directors of law, finance, HR, economic development, safety, service, and special assistant to the mayor. We have 6 pieces of legislation on the agenda tonight. I'm gonna save 94 for last. Can someone speak to 106, the first easement? And I assume 107 and the second easement are related.
I can, Mr. Chairman, and
Yeah.
if you'd like, I can kind of just spoke to them
Yep.
in tandem, since they're
Please do.
remain the same. So we, through the engineer's office, had OR Colon, do an assessment as to what takes were needed for the widening of Clay Road as part of the Clay Road resurfacing project. Determined that the 0.0073 acres and the 0.0048 acres were needed for the widening. They conducted all of the real estate negotiations on behalf of the city and come to an agreement with both of the property owners with respect to the compensation and the amount of easement that's being acquired at this point in time. And so these two pieces of legislation are necessary to continue the design of the Clay Road widening project right there at that intersection for that social future.
Great. Are there any questions on this legislation? So, ready? Ask council. Can't really turn my head, so I'm gonna take the silence as a no. So I'm gonna move to recommend 106 and ask for a second.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Lippert. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Alright. 106 is 3-0. I'm gonna move to favorably recommend 107 and ask for a second.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Lippert. All those in favor? Aye. 3-0. Okay, next I have 108, then and now certificates, Director Copper and
Yes, as you can, this is the second quarter, actually through August, of purchase orders that need retroactive approval for invoices, goods or services that have a purchase order date after the date of the invoice. It's on the bright spot, it's a shorter list, so that's good, and the training didn't occur until it was middle of June. We went on vacation, and it was after my vacation, it was beginning of. So anyway, the dollar amounts are just right over that, threshold. The largest one would be the CHN Housing Partners, and that was trying to get that program up and running, and here's where it's difficult. The auditors still want these encumbered, but it did go through council, there was a contract, but the next step is to encumber that contract so that then we can, because that's where then we can start pulling on it, but we got an invoice before we actually encumbered it. So it was approved, that 405 by council, and the same with the dispatch radios, the Motorola, we did approve the lease, and we approved all that, but to make the first lease payment, we already had a bill before we actually got it encumbered, and so we're working on that with our divisions, and it is getting better, so those are probably and then the other larger one is the CT consultants, which this one is because when we went out to bid in April, they were gonna roll the CT consultants who were the design engineers for the EQ basin at Spruce School. And it came in so significantly higher that we went back to, and we're doing value engineering and changing, looking at different ways to accomplish what we want to at a more effective cost. But then CT's like, well, we can't keep pulling this invoice. So it was gonna get rolled into the loan, but then it didn't, so wastewater paid for it and got a purchase order to pay it in August, so there's weird nuances that happen, so we're not gonna completely get rid of these things, but to the letter of the law, we need to report those on here, and that's what we're gonna do.
Director, how does this list, in terms of both dollars and quantity, compare to how we've done it the most recent couple of years? I just don't recall doing this on this scale.
We didn't. For the 2020, was it this year that we got? 2022's audit. We got an audit comment from it. We haven't had an audit comment before from it. But sometimes it's the luck of the draw of testing, which ones they pull the test, and, I mean, can I say that there was never a violation before, that we would never had to use this before? No, not at all. So this, several cities have implemented this process, and it's recommended by the auditors to just dot our i's and cross our t's, and so that's what I'm bringing to you.
Okay, so we're doing this process, whereas we didn't do it previously, that's part of what's driving the difference. We didn't do it.
We have them, but we didn't ever get an a comment from our auditors until this past year, that there were an exceptional amount so to enforce that, we're bringing these to you, and we're trying to tighten the reins on it, which I think we've done a good job, but there's just always gonna be a few that slip through, and so it's hopefully gonna, be lesser, but it's always gonna be a part of probably every quarter.
Director, I appreciate the explanation. I experienced these when I served on the North Olmsted School Board. This was a regular process we dealt with.
Oh, is it?
And so
Okay.
I'm just,
I
didn't recall doing it here, and
We
that's why I
didn't.
was,
we did
So-
not,
yeah, so. Mr. Lambert.
Yeah, so so out of the, I think last time there was maybe like 2 of them that would have caught us off guard that we weren't aware that it had been trying to be purchased. Were there any in this list that didn't go through kind of a general conversation of due to timing or this before that? I mean, it sounds like all of these were I mean, you could call it a.
these are regular,
regular.
they look like they're regular, processes, and like dues, sometimes they give us, the places give dues invoices, and it's not even due until September, say, but their invoice date is 7/25, so we try and take those out when they're relevant. This one happened to be, June, so.
I guess I would just be interested, clearly these are gonna be part of the procedure and that happens, and especially a lot of these are known. And it's just like, are you,
Yeah, like
you're
one
gonna
of
get
the,
it done
like
instead
the
of waiting
repair to
about
the repair to the vehicle, that should have been encumbered before, like they should have gotten the purchase order before they sent it out to Mike Bassford. They didn't do that, because that probably happened before and it's never been caught, sure.
I guess that's the ones that I think we would, like, we can, in the future, kind of.
I
Here-
have to show
here's the
all of
whole-
them,
No, I know you have to show them all, but as far as like presenting, like, at least from my perspective,
Well-
I care most about about the ones that we didn't, the person didn't
Right.
do it right. The other ones, like, yeah, that sounds like you guys had to hold up on an invoice or something, or you had to end up paying it because there was.
well, I think
Operational
that's
procedures.
why, that's, Mr. Chair, this is why I went over the larger ones, because those have a lot, like, well, why wouldn't it be, I mean, we approved it and blah, blah, blah. So that's why I was explaining those, I think those are more shock value than the 3,000, the 4,000, like those ones, and all of those are like standard operational type things, they're not exceptional items. So that's why I just felt like I picked those out. If there's any specific questions on a specific one that you want me to pull and give you more information, I'd be more than happy.
I would just be more interested in the ones that either one, we didn't approve through budgeting already, or two, we're grossly out of the time frame of when it's supposed to happen. Like, I think those are the ones that I would want to understand and say, well, how are we mediating this? Those other ones sound like they were completely aware and part of the process.
But they're large dollars that weren't encumbered, and what happens when they're not encumbered, this is the bigger thing, is that if you don't encumber a contract or encumber it to purchase it, then there's money in a budget that then someone else could come along and say, oh, look, we got all this money in the budget, and buy something else with it, or do something else with it, and then you're all of a sudden you get a bill, and you're like, hey, we have this and you didn't pay for it,
Yeah,
so,
those
so
are the
these
two
large
ones.
dollars are important
Okay.
to me.
Alright.
That's why I wanted to bring those up, but yes, I will definitely, if there's something exceptional on here that is out of the ordinary, I will. I'm trying to keep those off this list if I can, so we're working on it.
Thank you, Mr. Walker. I'll just caution this group that as we are doing this to satisfy the audit request, that it is unlikely that this list will become zero. If we continue to do this periodically, there's going to be some items. The question is to more what Mr. Lippers' question is as to the nature of them, not the quantity per se. So,
Got it.
any other questions? Okay, I'll move to favorably recommend to council and ask for a second.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Winford. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
3-0. The next item on the agenda is 109, federal equitable sharing fund. I will not just stop laughing like some people. Who can address this?
I am.
Thank you, Director.
This is, we have been, participating in the federal equitable sharing program, for asset forfeitures for a few years, and it takes, we have a lot in the pipeline, but we haven't received any until August of this year. And, when we were looking at where to put them, we should be putting it in its own fund, so we're creating the equitable sharing fund. We have controls in place in the police department already where they monitor these things individually. The assistant finance director and I are on the reports. We do reports to the federal programs and all that, but we just didn't have our own fund. So we want to create its own federal fund as they recommend.
Okay. Are there any questions from committee? Any questions from council? Seeing none, I would favorably recommend 109 and ask for a second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
3-0. Okay, Director Kopfer, 111, our transfer ordinance.
Okay, I'll go over the larger items if that's okay, and then if there's any specific questions after that, we can take those. One of the big sources of monies that can be transferred to other areas, is in the finance department. The bad part of, the decrease in income tax collection fees is mostly due to, we had a large retainer refund this year. Rita takes 3% off of every dollar they collect. And then at the end of June, they actually go and look at the actual costs and allocate those costs and then refund you back anything that was lower than or in excess or lower than the 2-3% that they withheld. So we had a sizable amount this year, probably because we collected so much last year that it helped us in the refund portion, because if you're collecting more and you're expending the same amount of resources, the cost of collection goes down. So the other significant item is in the Department of Law, and you'll see a corresponding decrease in the stop fund. The stop fund, if you recall, has a share of the law prosecutors' salaries and benefits as it related to the stop fund tickets and activities versus total court activities with regular tickets on duty. And there are not a lot of there's a big decrease in stop tickets being written, and so that fund is in a deficit position at the end of August. So I'm taking the amount that is in a deficit and for the remainder of the year, the prosecutors' wages and benefits out of that fund to make sure it doesn't go negative at the end of the year, that's when we would be in violation. And then we're going to relook at that new relationship, because obviously it's, the nature of ticket writing has changed dramatically in these last few years, so we're gonna redo an allocation that's gonna work in the future for next year's budget.
So Director, is the prosecutor's office able to sustain this because there's a vacancy, or how are you able to sustain this?
Because we're increasing the budget in the general fund we're transferring the expenditures over to make the stop fund not be in a deficit and put all the prosecutors' wages and benefits into the general fund. Now they're split.
Mr. Chairman? Yeah, if you recall each year, when I do the budget, I talk about how we take so much percentage of the prosecutor and slice from the stop fund, no money to stop fund anymore, so we're just gonna have to take out of the general fund until there's a turnaround or there's no ticket, so there's no percentage of his time devoted to that activity generated from that fund, so it's only appropriate that it go back to the general fund until we can see an increase in the stop activity.
Okay, so what I was trying to ask and did not do so articulately was the general fund is taking the burden, not a lack of, there's not excess in the law department's budget that is
No,
filling some
we're,
of this void.
correct, we're increasing the expenditure budget and the appropriation to accommodate that.
Okay. All things remain the same, except there's no money in that fund. So staffing and everything else remains the same.
Okay. Mr. Wilker?
But is the amount of money allocated to the prosecutor's office being reduced because there's no, like you said, there's no hours, there's fewer hours going towards?
You know, he's still working, but we still have tickets. That was just a funny mechanism. I don't know what the drop in tickets is. You're asking me what the percentage of stop versus general is. Are we reducing his compensation based on that? No.
So we didn't increase his compensation either
It's the same thing, right?
when he took on additional when it was a lot, so.
It was a funny mechanism.
Okay. Director may have overlooked, I'm sorry, go ahead.
That's okay, thank you. Do we know what's going on with the officers not doing stop?
Yes, Mr. Chair, yep.
Yes.
Carrie, I'll take this if it's okay.
Oh, please do.
We just don't have, a lot of the officers who used to run stop on a regular basis, which is the traffic enforcement on 480, have retired or moved on or doing other things. There aren't as many officers, especially with the younger ones now starting, that are interested in doing that work. It also pays, quite frankly, significantly less per hour than the private sector off-duty jobs they can get, like at Home Depot, as an example. So it's a shift in people on the force who want to do it and don't want to do it. So it's just been on the decrease especially this past year.
Is the wage for that position set by their contract?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Is there any safety-related implication of us having fewer tickets that you can speak to?
Meaning less presence on 480 to write tickets. Not that I've seen so far. I have regular conversations with Chief Wagner about it. We do have some officers out there who like to run stop. There just aren't as many anymore. If they're not running stop, then someone on patrol for any other, if there's a motor vehicle crash, will respond, whether it's on 480 or another road within the city. We're trying to find ways to increase interest in running stop, but we're just having a hard time right now.
Is this a topic that's likely to be revisited in the upcoming budget?
Yes. Yeah, I think we're gonna have to figure
figure out how to, either how to increase involvement or through negotiations, increase the rate, but I don't know how that's gonna, I don't know how that will go yet.
Okay. Ms. Williamson?
And just to reiterate, it's fully self-funded program.
Correct.
So it's not anything out of our own pockets, it's.
No.
Okay.
It's off-duty, fully funded, self-funded, yep.
Through the funds.
Director Kopfer, could you speak to the, if I missed it, I apologize, the salt reduction, the $100,000 reduction in the salt budget?
Yes, do you want me to continue going through that, or do you want, or just,
I'm sorry, I thought you were done.
oh, no, I wasn't, I
Oh.
just thought you guys were talking about that, so I didn't
No,
want to
no, no,
interrupt.
please continue.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
The 82,500 is the NOPEC monies that are gonna go into a payment. The other monies came out of ARPA, and so these are gonna have to come out of the general fund dollars to go to the home loan program, the home improvement program that you just talked about.
And then be reimbursed to the general fund?
No, this is, the money's coming in from NOPEC.
Right.
And then it's going out through the general fund into the home program.
Okay, so it's increase the general fund and then it leaves the general fund.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what yes.
This is the
Out.
the midpoint. It's the midpoint.
And then, engineering, we had some, inspection heavy projects for our city, and it's not the engineer, but it's the engineering inspector. They did require, some additional overtime, which they hadn't budgeted for, we haven't had that in a while. And also, they're a full-time employee and they had they changed their healthcare and went on to, the family plan, I believe. And so, we had budgeted a single plan, so we had to increase it. In the Department of Recreation and Public Engagement, under contractual services, we're increasing $25,000 for the RAN, STC, Senior Transportation Connection Services contract. There was a new contract this year and the price increased per trip. And also, there's an increase in volume again. It was slow to come back. People taking these van trips, so it's a combination of both to make it through the rest of the year. So we just needed to increase the budget for that. Talked about stock, and then the salt budget. So this is a correction for me, because I had moved what I had wanted to do last time, and I didn't. I didn't want to increase the state highway budget to account for that $100,000. I had wanted to take it out of salt because we didn't spend the money in salt, and I wanted to transfer it. But I didn't communicate well, and so I increased the budget when I didn't really have to. So now I'm decreasing it because the money from the salt budget, which we did not use, is gonna go into the capital outlay. And there's still plenty of salt money in the budget, or salt budgeting for this last part of the year. We're not worried about it. Knock on wood, it was a mild year.
So you would categorize this as a typo or correction, not a change in policy on our salt?
Correct. Instead of increasing that budget for the state highway for increasing it for state highway, Lorraine. Well, the Brook Park Road underpass, that's what it was. I didn't wanna increase it, I just wanted to take it out of the salt, put it in that line item. So yes, it's more of a technical correction.
Just like one, anyone to misconstrue, anyone voting to reduce the salt budget by 75%.
And that's it.
Are there any other questions? Seeing none.
Oh, and can we, on suspension?
Suspension.
We do this for our transport. Time is money.
For the public safety, welfare, and,
Yes, all of the above.
great, good to hear that. I will move to favorably recommend on suspension, and ask for a second. Seconded by Mr. Lippert. All those in favor? Aye. 3-0 on suspension. Okay. My suggestion on our last remaining item, which is the first listed on 94, would be for us to stand at ease and to have our presentation first and then come back with this. Hopefully we can then move on. Are we procedurally okay on doing that, Madam Clerk?
I believe so, you can just recess until after, correct?
To recess the meeting, is that what you're suggesting?
Yes. And then go do the full meeting.
Come back in before the committee of the whole then? Or technically?
After the committee of the whole, before.
Yeah, that you can recess it and come back.
All right, we'll recess this if it is a will of the committee. 7:52, is that okay? All right, all in favor? 3-0. Recess on finance at 7:52.
Okay, so at this time, we will convene the committee of the whole on October 10th, 2023, beginning at 7:52 p.m. Present are all members of council, which are all members of the committee of the whole. The mayor, the directors of law, finance, HR, economic, safety, service, as well as the special assistant to the mayor and guests. We're here this evening to discuss the highest and best use analysis presentation. Director Upton, I believe.
Thank you, Mr. President. It is my pleasure to introduce Dr. Robert A. Simons, aka Rody Simons, who's been helping us figure out our path forward on the Forest School, and he's assisted by Malcolm Dreyer. They've done a phenomenal job, and I don't exaggerate when I say that Dr. Simons has literally wrote the book on repurposing old school sites. So we're very excited to have his thought partnership in figuring out what to do moving forward. And he's got about a 15-minute presentation and as many questions as you have with respect to the reuse of the Forest School. So I'll turn it over to Dr. Simons.
Thank you very much. Thanks for giving me a chance to inspect the wheels of government. It's all about nuts and bolts. Well, we're here tonight, and I'm with Malcolm Dreyer. Thank you, Max Upton, for inviting us here, and Mayor Nicole for signing the contract. So anyway, I've got a little presentation here. It's about 15 pages. I think you've got it too, but I'll also I'll go through it in order, and then I'll. Pardon me?
Is it part of that?
Well, I've got it, and you will have it. Okay, well, the overview tonight, I'm going to talk about my qualifications briefly, and I'm going to talk about the broader scope of our work, which is really to look at first-time home buyers, empty nesters, and elderly residents of North Olmsted and their housing needs. The main guts of the analysis is what we call a housing market niche analysis. which looks at the demand for housing. It's both rental housing and for sale housing by rental band, by income band, and by house price. And then we're going to circle back a little bit and look at the empty nesters and the elderly and the first-time home buyers, which are of particular interest. Then we're going to go down and drill down with a Forest Elementary site, 11-acre site.
You
We're gonna give our recommendations for the highest and best use for that site. Spoiler alert, it's housing, various types. And then we'll give you some recommendations on the density and moving forward with that particular site in some detail. And then we'll close with next steps. So a little bit about me. I've been at the Cleveland State Levin College, or now the Levin School of Urban Affairs, since 1990. And this is my last full year of teaching. I'm doing real estate, urban planning, and related PhD and undergrad classes. And a nice run there. My background is in city and regional planning and economics. I got my advanced graduate work at the UNC Chapel Hill, North Carolina. And I have a bachelor's in anthropology, which is always fun, but it didn't really make me a lot of money, so I changed different fields there. I've been a Fulbright scholar in South Africa. Also worked abroad in Israel, teaching and doing research in those places. I've also run my academic department. I've been the chair of the department, director of the school, 3 years of hell. Much rather teach and do research, and I have an outside business which is serving as an expert witness on contaminated property cases, and also do some selected fun work like this, way less stressful than testifying in court on contaminated property. I've done about 100 cases, including East Palestine and a couple others, Flint, Michigan, among some of the bigger cases on contamination. So, also written 90 peer review articles and 5 books, one of which is on recycling sacred buildings and school sites. And Malcolm, former student of mine, as I'm also proud to say, is Max, and he basically did all the analysis and ran all the numbers and has the GIS, Geographic Information System. So we were retained in May to look at your housing market analysis here and around North Olmsted. So we're going to also compare North Olmsted with some of your nearby communities, peer communities, the unincorporated area, Olmsted Township, Fairview Park, and Westlake, of course, which is a little more upscale. Of course, they have Chicago Park. That's fancy. We've been communicating with Max monthly. We'll continue to do so till the end of this job, which runs out in December. And we've kind of pivoted off your master plan, which was written several years ago, looking at empty nesters, first-time home buyers, and elderly. And the elderly and empty nesters don't have firm age dates, and really neither does first-time home buyers. There's a little bit of amorphous categories, like moving targets. Some of them overlap. Empty nesters and elderly are kind of a blend there. First-time home buyers typically are.
Hopefully there's separation there for me.
Less than you might think. Yeah. Anyway, so just to summarize, your community has flat or slightly declining population and flat growth. You haven't had hardly any housing development at all since 2010. Maybe 50 units. There's a couple things going up now, and that's good to see. Your peer communities have been growing slowly. This is Cleveland. We're not going through the roof here, though COVID actually did help with prices and demand as people moved back off the coasts to good old Northeast Ohio, which has great amenities. So anyway, so now the study area we're looking at on my map here is a map of North Olmsted and a little circle around it within 4 miles of the Forest Elementary site. That's our study area, which contains about 17,000 households overall. We're including 13,500 in North Olmsted itself, and we've taken about 10% of the surrounding area as well, because you might pull some people into North Olmsted from nearby communities, or people from North Olmsted might cross the line. If they don't have kids in school, they probably won't care much. The taxes roughly are equivalent. You're a little higher in the tax rates, although your property values might be lower than some areas, so the net taxes you pay be about the same. In terms of your supply of housing, about 22% is rental and 78% is owned. And that's the same within the city itself, or just right across the city line there. So we're looking at an issue analysis by income bands. And what we're looking for, we'll start with the number of households, and then we'll look at the money they have and how they can spend that money, about 25% on rental property and up to 3 times their annual salary in house price. And that's a very, 25% is pretty constant. But the tripling factor is really a function of interest rates. When as interest rates go up, then that ratio kind of goes down because the affordability goes down. The 3 is not a bad look. So that's some of the assumptions we made. What we're trying to do is to see if people are maxing what they can spend on housing. So what you typically find in Cleveland and other places that don't have a lot of growth, people they end up at the lower end of what they can afford. They've kind of been there a long time. There's nothing really exciting and sexy for them to move to, so they really don't. But they could, and they certainly afford better. And if you do that, that leads to growth. And there's a lot of unserved housing up at the upper end of the market. You have very little rental housing at even close to the top of the market, and not much for sale housing either. So anyway, if you have the chart, that's not it, but it's like this one here. A lot of green bands on it. This is actually this one right here. Might be the top of that chart right there.
The little one on the top.
This one. Yes. So this is the skill that you're paying for, the main nugget of the market analysis for your market. So if you look at that, you'll see the income bands on the left where it says demand. We take the number of households from the census data and we divide them into $10,000 income bands, 15 or 20 bands there, and we follow that through to see what they can afford. And then we look at the actual supply of rental housing and for sale housing based on census data and for the most part, and whether it's owner occupied or not, and whether it's inside the North Olmsted boundaries or just over the line. And then we'll add that up, and if we take away if demand less supply, if that number is positive, then there's net demand, and if you build there, it's pretty open. If it's overserved, and you've got more supply than demand, then that's oversaturated. Don't build there. You could build there, but it'll bump another unit. So what you're looking at really is the green areas on the far right-hand side, the very far-hand right column where it says combined net demand on the far right. That's really where the value of this analysis is. And what you'll see is that there's a big chunk of demand for both rental and for sale housing. Rental housing over $1,900 a month and over $270,000 in value, all the way up to about $3,000 a month and $450,000 in value. And you can even go beyond that. The demand gets thinner, but there's still a lot of unmet demand way up to $600,000 or $4,000 rent. That $4,000 rentals aren't very plausible, but there are houses that are really nice that people can afford at $600,000. That's quite a lot higher than what you have for your average house price here, but people can afford it if it's built right. And the best thing is if built that, then people will buy it if it's built right, and etc. And then they'll vacate a unit that somebody else can buy, and then they can filter up that way. So what you see in moving to kind of the negative side, you see a lot of red on the far right-hand side. So really the overbuilt sectors, really from $90,000 up to about $270,000, or even really maybe $240,000. Those areas are very much overbuilt. So there's more supply than demand there. Then there's also, interestingly enough, a demand for fairly inexpensive housing where the rental areas are probably, say, under $650 a month. And now you can't really build market housing at that price, but you can do low-income housing, and that can be oriented toward empty nesters or elderly people that need a small space for low rent. Probably be your own folks that are already living here that want to stay in town. Grainy. All right, so let's look at our demographics, our groups of interest. They were kind of all over the affordability or income spectrum. First-time home buyers typically are 26 to 45 years old. They have maybe $100,000 in income because you might have two working, spouses there or household leaders. They may have young kids. They want to buy a home. Pretty obvious, but they don't always have kids, and people aren't necessarily having kids that much these days, and they may be having one kid, not several. So, empty nesters, kids are growing out of the house. The younger ones, might even be in their 50s. They probably have 1 or 2 incomes. They probably have good earning power at the top of their game income-wise. Over 100 is easy, even up to 150 and more. They prefer to have a one-story living, but they don't need it. They really want to downsize to low maintenance. An upscale rental would be good for those folks, or a low maintenance condo. They maybe, they're going down to Florida part of the year, They don't wanna have to deal with the water and mowing the lawn, that kind of stuff. Elderly, these people are in their 70s, maybe even mid to late 70s, maybe a little frail, they need one-story living. It can be small, small two, and all these units, need to be well designed for the target market. You don't want to build a 3-bedroom, 1.5-bath house for these folks. It's got to be tailored, probably with upscale finishes, and looking for what they really need to have a good quality of life. So, kind of a work in progress. This is the next chart here. It has red numbers. This is the segments where the 3 segments fall in the kind of the preponderance of them. And what you'll see in the middle, for example, the 45 to 64-year-olds, which is some of the empty nesters, those are the folks with the highest income. And the preponderance are the folks with the 65 and over, their incomes are generally below 40,000. And then the first-time home buyers are kind of all over the place. All right, so that's the background. Let's move now to the Forest Elementary site there. Forest Elementary site, 11.2 acres. Max has told me you have a little carve out for the southeast part, like right over here, there's a little retention basement proposed. I get that, that's part of the mix with the open space. So the question is, what do you do with a piece of dirt? That's what the real estate folks think about it. This piece of land, it's actually a quite nice piece of land, and we look at the attributes of the land. It's location, access, zoning, market, competition, other particular things regarding the land, and you can see in our highest and best use analysis in purely readable type is the list of 20-odd uses and similar number of site attributes. We'll make a grid, and the grid looks at, for each type of possible use, how desirable is that particular attribute for that use. If it's really great, we'll give it a +2. If it's neutral, we'll give it a 0. And if it hurts, if it's minus, then we'll give it a -2. And we don't really care what the raw scores are. What we care is the order of finish. And then we kind of line up the uses, and the ones with the highest scores are most desirable. We do this once. We don't play with it. You do it once and you're done. So what we found is single-family detached, including smaller single-family patio homes, townhouse cluster homes, condos, garden apartments, and to some degree, independent living for seniors are the most desirable uses. And you can see that on this little table here. This is the highest and best use. You can see some of the things we considered. I'll just read some of them carefully. Your master plan, traffic-based things, building the tax base, whether it's compatible with the street design grid and the surrounding land uses. Does it help first-time home buyers, empty nesters, and elderly folks? What about the daytime and evening use, access to the highway, the zoning, pedestrian, those kinds of things? Pretty much all over the board. And everything's ranked. There's about 400 judgments on this table, made independently, and then we just see where the chips fall. So your housing uses will be well received on this site. And one thing I wanted to point out at the site that concerns me a little bit is the fact that you don't actually have access to Stearns on the site. There's a little flagpole going up here on the west side of the property. You're going to need to get some kind of access there. You got a wall there right now. I think that would be good because it would just make 2 ways in and out. I think the fire people would like that, and I think it would be well received. It may require a little bit of traffic planning on Stearns Road as well. But it's not a very long piece of land. It's just maybe 50 feet or so, 30 to 70 feet wide, that strip on the far left-hand side. Or left side. Okay, so now that we kind of zone in on the site itself. So what do we do with that piece of dirt? So it's currently zoned for 4 dwelling units an acre, so around 45 units or so. Higher density would be more impactful for serving your 3 groups. Remember that you have flat population and you haven't built much lately at all. And you have this series of about, if I'm not mistaken, up to 5 different school sites coming your way over the next 5 to 10 years. Great opportunity to get proactive and get developers interested in brilliant products for the people that live in your town. So the higher density will be beneficial to both pay back your $2 million that you've got invested in this dirt, Every additional unit might get you $30,000 to $70,000 because the value of a blank, which is a building site with the permission to build, is about 15%, 15% of the end value of the house or the unit. So you want to get your density up to the point where you get yourself paid back. And your competing projects like Mills Point and Westlake, those are close to around 6 dwelling units an acre. I believe that your cluster house zoning here is 5 1/4 an acre. So anyway, I'm going to initially recommend it. I think you'll do best if you zone the site for about 6 dwelling units an acre and allow some flexibility to the builder. Give them up to, say, 200,000 square feet of built space. That lets them figure out the best, mix of land uses of housing, type of land uses. And that gives you about a 0.4 floor area ratio, which is about the same density if you had a 2,500 square foot house on a 6,300 square foot lot. It's about the same density as that overall, which isn't too bad. That's like a 2-story, 1,250 square foot footprint house on a 60 by 110 lot, 60 frontage. So it's not too scary. But that would give you a good chance to hit the market there. And you should allow a flexible mix of detached cluster homes and townhomes, etc., with a second access point to Stearns. And in terms of financing, you should encourage a tax increment financing for the infrastructure costs. Let the developer take the lead on that. It can be their dime. You can figure that out. That'll, of course, is related to your school taxes and what happens to that, or your city income tax, however the countryside deals with it. And we're going to also recommend that your group of board provide some more housing market details. We're going to finish this report. We still have some things to do. We have a focus group and some other things that we're going to use to finish. And by the end of December, we'll have that for you. So, okay, some of the procedural suggestions. There's different ways that you can transact this property. We're suggesting you use an RFQ, request for qualifications approach. That way you can consider things besides the offered sales price, which of course is important, but not the only criteria. But you want to have things like these following selection factors: price, or the payable schedule. In other words, do they put it all down at once? Do they dribble it in, as they get paid, or as they sell? That they should meet the housing needs of 2 of your 3 groups: the first-time home buyers, the elderly, or the empty nesters. Have a mix of residential units and product types. A mix will allow them to sell faster. If they're all the same kind, they'll take a long to absorb. If you have 2 or 3 different related niches or compatible niches, then you should be able to get the thing up and occupied quicker. And also try to break ground by June of 25, or even as soon as you can. High quality common space available to all occupants. If you have high quality common space, things like cluster homes will help with that, because it frees up a lot of space. And at least half the units should be for sale, maybe about half for rent. But let them figure that out, let the developers figure it out. So we're going to plan to finish this job in the next couple of months, by the end of the calendar year, December 23. We're going to add insights and detailed findings. We have focus groups where I think it's on the 26th or so of October. And looking ahead to some of your other school sites, you've got some other sites, including a 20-plus acre site that will also probably be in the same crosshairs for this type of market demand, and could be a good follow-up step to force. So, issue the final report. We're done. Okay, that's what I have. Glad to answer any questions you may have. Sir.
So you're mentioning cluster homes here as the target. With, we're redoing a new school, which is supposed to be beneficial for, families, growing families. Is cluster homes a family-focused build these days? Is that something that people are going to look to take advantage of the things that you were mentioning as kind of opportunity of improvement for our city?
Great question, and the answer is it depends on the design. The cluster homes are typically 3 to 4 to 5 units. There's different ways to have them. Sometimes they face in different directions, so they have semi-private entrances. The question is, that frees up a lot of common space. What's in that common space? You have playgrounds, those kinds of facilities. It makes it easier to have a mix of residential, passive recreation, and active recreation right on site. So you could require that as part of the design. I think attracting kids would be great. It's compatible with the other uses as well.
Robbie,
Yes.
I have a few, what should be quick questions. I'm not familiar with the term patio home.
Right. So patio home is a niche market. It's a small, single-family detached home on a teeny lot. That's maybe 1,100 square feet, a small 3, a large 2. Probably a large 2.
Is this the new range?
Not the new range, it's the old range.
Okay, alright,
What it has is it's on its own lot.
okay.
So it's shrunken down a lot, but people that want those, that's the one-store model, right? The flat one-story model. And there's not a lot of lawn maintenance.
Second question. Director Upton indicated that you have a lot of experience with repurposing school sites. Can you name some nearby examples?
West Tech. Don't do that. High schools are terrible. I think we looked at about a dozen of them. The ones that struck me are the ones down in Arkansas that we looked at. Grade schools are the best because they're small. There are also a couple schools on the east side of Cleveland. Jesse Owens, they tore it down unfortunately, but it was a sweet one. And you know, if you have them where they're able to be repurposed with historic preservation tax credits and low-income housing tax credits, that's the most successful financial model. Those deals are very skinny. They end up as rental housing typically. I've also seen some that are suitable for condos, but the problem is they're just not nice enough. The schools were built, you know, like a brick, you know what house. They're functional, old and solid, and you know, the layout's really best for apartments. Typically you take 2 classrooms, combine them. You've got a lot of heavy infrastructure there. The bathrooms are in the wrong spot. You have to put bathrooms and water, you know, in every unit. So it's a heavy rehab. That's why you need the tax credits.
Thank you. And last question from myself. You mentioned that narrow strip of land along Stearns where
Yes.
you're recommending access. Are there any environmental concerns over there, such as wetlands or anything of that nature?
So Max is going, no, I haven't seen any environmental reports, but
No, we've met with ODOT District 12 on that process, and that's ongoing, because that was one of the early recommendations in one of our monthly Zoom calls, I believe, in July. So we met with Director of District 12 and have been advancing the conversation, because there's a bunch of local money, federal money, all that stuff that went into the Crocker Stearns connector. And specifically with respect to the sound barriers, because there's environmental concerns in terms of measuring the amount of noise to making sure that we're sensitive to that, whatever that second access point is.
Okay. Thank you. So at this point, I'll open it up to other members of the committee. Mr. Glassman, then Ms. Williamson.
Thank you, President Sark. So on your list of the demand for the home values, you referenced that some of this is data from the census, which home values 3 years ago were very different than what they are now. So how does that, when I'm looking at a $250,000 house, are we talking $250,000 in today's market, or are we talking about $250,000 3 years ago?
I'll let Malcolm address it in a minute, but in general, the 2020 census data are actually 2019 self-reported numbers. Malcolm, what can you say about the
Well, I can say along those lines, you'd see the increase in the income, home household income would increase as well along those lines. So we're matching 2 things. We're matching the demand and the supply. So you probably would have seen both of those going up, but that would be a concern. A lot of this, we're working with the best available data. The census data is the best available data for this job. It's pretty much what I can say on that. So yes, this is data from 2021, and so it would be there's a slight lag in the data. There's also a slight lag in the household income, which would increase as well.
We do have the realty.com data that's in the spreadsheet.
Yeah, which shows a very strong housing market. All the factors we looked at were increasing over the last 5 years. So you've got median income, dollars per square foot increasing, you've got time of the market decreasing. So a lot of the factors show a very strong market in the home state. And ready to absorb. I mean, we're talking about, for this project, let's say 50 units is of this band is like less than 2%. So it's the market is ready to jump at this product once it comes out.
I guess what I was really getting at is should we be looking at these numbers and skewing them higher in our minds because they're based on, again, the 3 years ago or 4 years ago? In terms of
We'll be
the
providing
higher-
you, as part of the work product,
Yeah.
with forecasts of demand by sector for the next 4 years.
Okay.
I think you're right. Yes, you can look a little bit higher. That would be okay to do that. I think that's what we'll be looking at. Again, we're finding the gaps, but you're right. The gaps would also follow with inflation as well. So yes, I think you could look at a little higher. Really, you can look at 270,000 and up in the front home prices, and you'd be fine. And continue to go up on that. So
Plus you got rates going up, which affects the affordability formula. And people came in from the coast, because Cleveland's cheap, and they were from here. Now some of them are going back. So there's been actually a lot of movement lately, both physical movement of people, as well as movement in the financial market. So it's been a volatile time the last couple of years.
Councilman, Ms. Williams is next.
Thank you. Has there been any thought to a tree preservation plan with this site?
I haven't considered it. Turn that over.
That would be, whichever development firm is selected through the RFP process, that would be part of their site plan approval, would be tree preservation to the extent that it's practicable to preserve what's there. And folks want to live around mature trees, so I think the school site lays it out pretty well that there's a development path, so to speak, there that kind of respects a lot of the tree community that exists.
And part of the RFQ process, you can kind of build that in. It's one of the things you're looking for.
Mr. Lambert.
I'm just having a hard time correlating the recommendation versus the demand analysis here, as well as, part of the reason why the demand, I look at what we have for high dollar home prices over the last few years, and the turnover on those have been super fast for anything over 300,000 and higher. Everything's turned over immediately.
Which means there's demand for it.
Right.
So there's a very long line for that. That's why it's turning over quickly.
So
build more. It's a market signal.
Yeah, and what you're recommending for this site is like cluster homes in the $270,000.
No, I'm not saying in that band. I mean, you really need to let your developer bid and figure out what they want to build on before.
Okay.
Let them do the thinking part. We'll provide them with some background data. Let them find their niches.
So I will speak and say that looking at a close competitor, Bill's point, following similar to what we're suggesting. They had 15 single-family homes on 2.7 acres, so that's 5.6 units per acre. Between 450 and 570,000. So you can reach those higher levels with what we're suggesting. And I think that's definitely reachable. This style with those prices, and it's being done all around this community right now. So if you look, the closest one's Crocker Woods and Mills. Crocker Woods is not the same style, but you're seeing very high prices being reached. They're also
Okay, and then my follow-on question on that is around the long-term tax base, income tax I'm talking about for separate family homes versus cluster homes. Is that material or is that not that impactful? And part of this is just I'm obviously not a housing analysis person, but when I think cluster homes, I think typically more empty nesters and things like that income-wise, you're looking over time to have a reduced income tax base versus a single-family home in a new school district, new school buildings, et cetera, of what that income tax long-term looks like. And I just wasn't sure if that was part of the analysis.
So I will say the incomes are strong for the first-time home buyers all the way through empty nesters. The strongest income range is the empty nesters for sure, and then you see a drop off when you get to seniors and elderly. That's expected. That's why we would recommend affordable housing for that niche. But as far as empty nesters, that is the wealthiest, strongest financial niche of all the groups we looked at for sure.
And they pay income on their interest income.
And they still, they're going to be working for many years still. But the thing you can consider is they're not going to be a burden on, let's say, the schools. The students are gone, so it's just an income tax with less of a burden on the city. So that's another.
The income tax goes to the city, and property tax goes to the school.
Yeah.
But with interest rates high now on bonds, people are getting into that, and There's income from that, which we didn't have a couple years ago.
The finance director had a question, and then back to Mr. Glasgow.
With pleasure.
Did you factor in that we have 100% credit, that we don't, so if people work in Cleveland, and live in North Olmsted, we don't get any of that money that they pay to Cleveland, as income, for income taxes? Or are you just using the income as far as that there's demand there, their income levels, you're not looking at income tax that's coming to?
Correct, we did not do a fiscal
Okay.
impact analysis, we could do that, but we weren't asked to, but,
Yeah, the income tax is more of like, incentive or disincentive to move profile.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. President, if I may, that analysis comes into play once we start developing and modeling the RFQ out as to what, some rudimentary assumptions, the percentage of household income subject to income tax to make a projection, but this analysis is purely a what exists in our housing market, what can be absorbed, what the price point is, what the housing typology is. It kind of where it falls back on my place to make this, build a framework and say, here's the assumptions that come into this return on investment model versus this one based upon their recommendations.
and your developers would probably put up, here's what we'll do for you, here's the baskets that the tax base here, the income and the property tax and the other potential tax bases, that'll be your job to show that.
Mr. Glasgow.
Thank you, Mr. President. So, don't want you to reveal too much of your secret sauce, but could you give us a little bit on how you determine the demand, other than just it's from the census?
It's income, and we bring it up to current value, like 2023, so there's a 4-year gap.
Right, but I mean, like, you know, you have a band here where you're saying we have lots of oversupply. Right now, everything is selling in North Olmsted, and it's been that way for, I don't know, a year or more. How do you? I'm just trying to understand how that works.
So what we're really lining up here is how much can people afford versus what they're actually spending. What we're seeing is a lot of people can afford more than they're spending now. They've been in the house for 7 years, 10 years. They bought it, you know, it was worth $175, now it's worth $275. And they get a mortgage at this big at 4%. If they were excited and motivated for a lifestyle change or just better product or more interesting product, they would voluntarily move. And that would open up the option for that house to be, you know, sold to somebody else.
So is it?
It's really
maybe
measure to potential.
Yeah, that's what I was going to get to. So is it maybe more easier for me at least to think of it as this is reflective of how much people can afford,
Correct.
not necessarily what they specifically are looking to buy?
Well, yes, what they can afford, what they're specifically looking to buy, we want to have the focus groups. They get a little better feel for that.
It's also a function of what's available. So we're talking about, you know, who's living there, where are they living, and what is also available. So you said, yeah, it's a potential kind of situation. Like if someone who's living, they really want to stay in North Olmsted, they want a new house done, they look at the market, there's nothing about that. They fit into one of these larger categories. They might be motivated to move and purchase one of these homes in these little bands. Now, that doesn't mean they have to move, but it means that their income lines up with this band better than it does with, say, they're currently living in the overbuilt red band. Look at the housing market in North Olmsted. 51% was built in the 60s and the 70s. So we're talking about it's a very aged stock, so you want to get it refreshed.
And you got all this land, you have control.
Yeah, all this land. This is the first time you've had land pop in. This is a big deal.
You're actually in really good shape for the main thing, which is the dirt. You got a nice pipeline of dirt that you can control. And with a little information, you can probably fill it with a lot of housing.
Go ahead, Mr. Glasgow.
Thank you. That's my last big line of questions. So on the, I'm not sure what to call this, the
Highest and best use
highest best use table. I understand and I've read you have a very thorough explanation of what's a 2, what's a 1, what's a 0, and all
Yes.
that.
Which is not on the handout.
But all of this, all these different site attributes are essentially co-equal.
Yes.
Okay.
Correct. Nothing's weighted higher than anything else.
Okay. So again, you would say that this is more we're looking for signals of what might work as opposed to the absolute. Something's a 20 versus a 26, so 26.
Those are all okay. I mean, anything that's low, it just won't work.
Right.
stuff that's super high or high, they can probably both work. The stuff in the middle, so the senior living, this site's a little small for that. You know, you really want to go, slow go, no go, congregate care of campus, 15 acres kind of thing. This is too small. That's that way.
But yes, I think you're 100% right. That doesn't mean the 26 is so much better than the 25. That's so much better than the 24. They're all good suggestions by themselves or working together with some of the other good suggestions as well. So yeah, it's just kind of a starting point. What to do with dirt. Okay.
And it's likely that the site can accommodate more than one use. And this is a flexible analysis that allows the developer to figure out, pick and choose between these uses.
Any other questions or comments from the committee? Okay, seeing none. At this time, 8:31 p.m., all of council, the mayor, the law director, the finance director, and the director of economic development will adjourn into executive session to consider the sale of property at competitive bidding, premature disclosure of information to give an unfair competitive or bargaining advantage to a person whose personal private interest is adverse to the general public interest. Also, please note that there will be no other public meetings this evening. We will reconvene after executive session.
We will resume the finance committee recess on -94 pertaining to that legislation.
Right,
That is
right.
it.
Okay. Director.
I would move, Mr. President, based on the explanation provided by. Exactly.
Roll call, please. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Great.
7-0. Don't let the animal within drop that word. Come on back, we need you. I left to go work for a guy named Army Buish.
You have to,
oh, yeah.
you have to throw the
So
down.
their appointment is with this dude.
Thanks for the work. Thanks for the grilling.
We sat right behind you too. I was like, oh.
Thank you, everyone. Good luck.
Okay. Thank you.
You, how about I give you something to read? You can read like the Constitution or something.
Read to the camera?
Yeah.
I would love to.
I'm going to get it. Who's got a pocket Constitution?
I have
Pocket
Constitution. Google it on
You know
my
who
phone.
used to have it? Marcy Capper used to have it.
I can Google it on my phone.
I can't. It has his name. It has his name. I'm going in my outfit.
All they said is, stay here.
No, it has his name.
I'm leaving my stuff here. There's still gonna be someone here, so.
Shit, buddy.
You're leaving? We're going home? You don't want to stay?
Our stuff is okay.
I'm not invited to that.
Should we take our
Like our
stuff?
stuff is okay here.
Yeah,
so.
the camera's on. They'll catch the thief if the.
Oh, okay, good.
I'm.
Oh, yeah, I talked to yesterday, he goes, yeah, I gotta talk to him. I know, I put it on his website, his text. Did his phone? I'll say his phone.
You know what, he has my address, and just drop him off and I'll put him in the meeting. Okay?
Good. Have a good night, have fun in there. Oh, okay.
there's no reason to hang around for nothing.
Time to go. Oh. Here's something.
Since you guys are right here. And then somebody came up the stairs while I was standing there. I guess she got lost and she was meant to go to the police station. Cause she thought this was. Yeah, he took her over there.
those two live too.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
The timing. Okay, good. You know, want that. Please do, if you don't believe that. I like that trade out there and I'll let everybody in for the day. So, good. Thank you. Appreciate it.
How about the sidewalk?
Oh, you were.
Well, right for you.
Huh?
You're right for you.
I could see what her face was doing, so I was like, what does she want? This is zoning on you. I'm like, what does she want? Okay, okay. Thank you, appreciate it. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Dear Carrie, I forgot to make my way over there.
That's all good.
I apologize. You okay?
Thank you.
You're still.
Just me. I'm still here. This is what I do. I'm watching all this Israeli.
These finished all the Christmas cards.
You were supposed to wake us up at 9:15.
Oh, I didn't know.
This is the way I want to spend my anniversary.
Oh. Yeah, you're trying to get divorced.
Mine's next Tuesday.
What is that?
Discussion.
Do you want some? Just a piece? I expect it. Don't ask why.
On a survey, this is not exact, because it's in book. The survey.
Go ahead.
The survey,
It's on.
actually, I mean,
It's big.
wait till we get that, we start it up there.
Oh, sorry.
Because he's got to open up.
I should say about talk about it.
Are we good?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, we will re-adjourn the committee of the whole at 9:24 p.m. And with there being no further business to come before the committee of the whole, we will adjourn the meeting also at 9:24 p.m.
And we'll resume finance at 9:24 p.m. on -94 pertaining to a portion of the former forest property. Mr. Upton, you just passed out some documents to us.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I did, and I'll caveat to Councilwoman Williamson raised a concern, just to say that this is a aerial takeoff that's taken at an angle, and so it's an approximation of a digital tool that I have used to best represent the relationship between the 8/10 of an acre and the rest of the development site. So,
6/10 of an acre?
8/10.
So I would love to amend this legislation in committee with the right number.
It is limited, yes, you are correct. I am tired. Yes.
0.6629 acres.
Correct, yes.
All right.
Going once.
Yes. Sorry, my apologies.
Okay.
So, this is the representation of its relationship to the rest of the development site, right? So, again, the flip side of the page, the red outline, is, again, a rough takeoff of what a 30-foot no-cut easement looks like around the residential property, right? And so, this particular site, the rear of the property is going to be used mainly for stormwater retention and to comply with impervious surface requirements that are in our code. The property is appraised at $385,000. The value per acre on that appraisal is $31,950. The sale price as a proportion of that value per acre is, as in the legislation, 25,855.02, is actually a touch higher than the actual appraised value, right? This particular transaction, Director Garreau and I worked on the language of the purchase and sale agreement that puts forward deadlines for site plan approval, zoning approval, rezoning, a corresponding capital investment commitment that is $1.865 million. that is a $1.5 million for a brand new building. Various parking lot, site work, electrical, HVAC, all those sorts of things. $1,695,000 in what we call hard costs. Those are sticks and bricks, right? Machinery and equipment, $135,000 in machinery and equipment investment. Total development costs, there's $15,000 in engineering and $20,000 in architectural costs. The total development costs by this business owner, $1,865,000 is their total development cost to build this new building. With the build of this new building, they're going to hire at least 6 new employees. They'd like to hire more, but talent is an issue in the automotive tech space and the service management space. They just can't find folks. But the total annual payroll that is committed as a result of this purchase is $530,000, and the annual income taxes $10,600, 2%, assuming that the technicians and managers live inside the city and they don't.
As long as they work in the city.
Yes, I'm sorry. Okay. Lincoln was on the 4 o'clock in the morning, but that is the committed investment, the committed job creation should this purchase and sale agreement move forward. And Mr. Chairman, if it be the pleasure of the committee and council, ask that this may be considered for second read, so that there's an alternative means of financing called PACE, which is Property Assessed Clean Energy. So they're utilizing energy efficiency design standards to then bond out, and that requires subsequent legislation for us to join what's called an energy special improvement district. And once we're in that, any building owner, any business owner can get PACE financing for their building, which actually takes the clean energy improvements, instead of putting them on the capital stack, it puts them as a function of a property tax assessment, voluntary. That is part of the nature of the urgency of the transaction, Mr. Chairman.
Let's see. Ms. Williamson.
Director, can you explain, in looking at, this is the original map that we got 2 weeks ago versus what you just handed us tonight, why does it look, I know you said it's aerial, but.
So this map, so that is what it actually matters. That is from the legal descriptions, that is 250 feet to the rear of the property. It's measured at a,
so it won't cut into this residential.
This is done off the legal descriptions. This is what matters. This is an aerial taken at an angle to represent.
Okay, so, but I'm saying based on this.
That is what you are.
It's not cutting into this parcel, like, you know what I mean? So
yes, I know exactly what you're saying, but, because I'm taking this measurement essentially looking like this down at flat ground, so that's why the measurement's off. This exhibit A is the true legal description.
So then technically, these two businesses here, Weber and this one next door,
yes,
their lines are just gonna be, it's not gonna extend.
It's not gonna be like 3/4 of this person's backyard, the way this.
That's all I wanted to know. Okay.
Yeah, the legal description, the legal survey that is in your exhibit A is what actually matters.
Okay.
One of the questions that I received was, how does this relate? So I tried to display this in this representation using the tool that I have available to me. So you can see that it relates.
Director Grove, either in committee or on the floor, do we need to amend, or procedurally what do we need to do so that we have this absolute correct number, 6629?
I can't remember, we didn't amend.
We did.
We did
Yeah,
not.
we did not.
It was on the, I'm sorry.
I know, but it appeared as crossed off and then numbered.
That's how
why
I
We
was
did not amend this
didn't
piece
amend
of,
it.
no, we did
We
not.
didn't amend it.
We did not.
Okay, so we would have to amend it, or you could probably offer a substitute copy or something like that if you wanted to clean it up, but you just do the amendment. and on the floor of council, at your committee report, and it'll be read as amended then after the committee report is done, so.
And then
Just make a motion on the, you recommend approval tonight if you wish to with that amendment, and then actually amend it after your committee report.
Ms. Williamson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The property, or this 25,000, that's not gonna change,
No.
right? Because this changed?
No, it's actually, we're getting a higher than its proportional price, right? So you're gonna take the 31,000 per acre and multiply that by 0.6629, I believe it's a little bit lower, it's like 21 and some change. We're actually getting a little bit higher of the price.
Any further questions? Okay, seeing none, I will move to favorably recommend this to council with amendment, suspension at Mr. Upton's request, and ask for a second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Lippert. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 3-0, we are